Are you looking for affordable land? Today I'm going to show you over 45 properties that are priced affordably and which come with owner financing, at least many of them do. And I'm going to continue my live stream series on how to make money from vacant land. So here's what to expect. I'll start with some updates on the properties that we have coming up. Then I'll go over our deal of the day, and then we're going to talk about how to make money from vacant land. And today we'll focus on horses, raising horses. And finally, we'll have our fun fact of the day and a free gift for everyone who joined the live stream. So now, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Erica. I have a company that buys and sells vacant land. It's called Gokce Capital. You can find our website at gokcecapital.com. And you can find all of our properties by clicking Buy Land, or you can just go to land.gokcap.com. So I've helped over 670 people become landowners, and we do have properties throughout the U.S., as you can see here on this map. So right now we have properties in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, New York, New Mexico, Colorado, and Oregon. And in the upcoming days, we will have more properties in Colorado, New Mexico, and Nevada. So keep an eye out for those. Now, just some updates. If you look at our table here, which has a little more information on all of our properties, you'll see that a couple properties are on hold, including our Klamath County property. And actually, let me just move this over. So our Klamath County property is on hold, as is our property in Burke County and our property in Lee County, Florida. So our properties, hi Safel, more properties. Yes, we're working on it. We're just doing an acquisition push right now. So I'm hoping that we'll be getting a lot more properties in the upcoming weeks. We're also starting some more Florida, looking at Florida heavily because we are running low on Florida properties. I know that they're very popular. We did, though, just list or bring to market a few properties. I didn't highlight these, I don't think, in previous live streams, but we do have a new property in Vance County, North Carolina, a new property in Bertie County, North Carolina, and then one in Valencia and Socorro County. Both are in New Mexico, and these are both in the Tierra Grande subdivision. And I actually wanted for the deal of the day to highlight our Socorro County property. We have it listed as our number 2 value pick. So we can take a look at this one. It's actually 6.86 acres, so it's a little bit larger than a lot of the properties that we get in this area. And now this is in Tierra Grande. We have sold a number of properties in Tierra Grande. We bought and sold a number of properties in Tierra Grande. We like this subdivision, well, first of all, because it's a beautiful area. The satellite image doesn't fully capture it, but you have like this wide, expansive grassland with beautiful views of the Manzano Mountains. And it's still very rural, so you get that nice rural, secluded kind of privacy out here. But unlike a lot of the other subdivisions in this area, so if we zoom out, we'll see we're just to the south of Albuquerque. And there are a lot of subdivisions here. We buy throughout this area. Some of the other subdivisions people like because they don't have an HOA or restrictions. But the nice thing about Tierra Grande is because there is a property owners association here, that does mean that basic infrastructure has been developed in this area. So at least you have power and roads that are in decent condition. And that does mean that many people have actually been able to build in this subdivision. So you can see there are some homes here. You still get a lot of privacy. It's still very rural, but people are actually able to build in this subdivision. There are about 150 homes, I believe. You can see all of them here. And we're not too far from a more main road that would take you into the bedroom communities of Albuquerque. But this property, it does have access via a dirt road. It is a little bit larger than the other properties in the area at over 5 acres, and we have priced it at $6,495. But as with all of our properties, we do offer owner financing as well, and we will tailor those owner financing terms to your budget to make sure that it is affordable for you. And as with all of the properties that we sell for sale by owner, you can hold the property while you do your research. The hold fee would be applied toward the purchase price if you go ahead with the purchase within 30 days. And that hold fee can actually also be applied to a different property if you decide another one works for you better, as long as you buy within 30 days as well. So we try to give you the opportunity to do your research and figure out which property will really work best for you. So this is our Socorro County property, and I wanted to highlight it because it's in an HOA, but the HOA does allow 2 horses for every 5 acres. So a lot of property owners here do raise horses on the land, and that's what I wanted to talk about in the meat of today's live stream. Raising horses on land and whether you can make money doing so. Because a lot of people want horses primarily for themselves. They like horses, they just like having horses. They like riding horses. They're horse enthusiasts, but horses are quite expensive. So if there's a way to potentially offset the cost of the horse, that would be helpful, I'm sure, for anyone who loves horses. Zafael, you're saying, maybe not of interest to you, but I've never understood what North, South Dakota, and some other states don't seem to have publicly accessible MLS or listing systems. If you want more topics. Oh, yeah, maybe I can cover that. Look into if that's of interest to people who are maybe more veteran land buyers. We can talk about the MLS in general and how it differs from state to state and, different laws around that. So yeah, we can do that tomorrow if you're interested in that. Okay. So yes, horses. Now horses, Zafael, I don't know if you're interested in horses. Aren't there wild horses in the area? There are wild horses. I don't know if it in Tierra Grande, but on BLM land, there are areas of BLM land I know that do have wild horses. And in fact, they have like a whole wild horse division designed to manage the wild horse populations. But yeah, no, I don't think New Mexico has wild pythons, but that would actually be an interesting topic to cover, wild pythons in Florida, because it is a big problem. I know they are not helping the local wildlife out there. Okay, so I know a lot of people like to buy rural land because they are interested in having a horse or two. So I wanted to cover just some of the basics of what owning a horse might mean, and then whether there is a way to offset those costs by also generating some income. I'd maybe like horses more if they didn't cost so much money. Yep. So that's what I was going to cover. They are quite costly, not like having a dog or a cat, right? But they are very nice to have. I've actually I don't even really know how to ride a horse, but they're cool animals. And costly. So there are a couple things to keep in mind with owning horses. So the first big question you're going to have to ask yourself is, are horses even allowed? Because unlike dogs and cats, of course, horses can be regulated by zoning. So there are many areas that restrict horses on the property. Obviously, in cities and towns and suburbs, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to have horses on your property. But even in rural areas, there might be restrictions on whether you can have horses at all, or if they're allowed, the number of horses you can have. So for instance, in Tierra Grande, you're allowed 2 horses for every 5 acres, which actually makes sense if you think about how much space a horse really needs in order to thrive. So, and Zafael, you're saying, I don't think I've Yeah, I don't think I've covered renting land for pasture or shelter to people for income. So that's another topic we can cover in the upcoming live streams as well. Are ponies cheaper? Dwarf ponies. Ponies would probably be a little bit cheaper, but a lot of the infrastructure is going to be the same. So you might have a little bit less in feed, but they're still going to have a cost. A parent rental agreement didn't say anything about dwarf ponies. Well, I would think that dwarf ponies would be included in any horse regulations, but you could always try and convince local zoning officials that they're not the same as horses, that they're more like dogs. See what happens. Yeah. So that's the first thing. You'll need to figure out whether you're even allowed to have horses per zoning. Then apartment. I guess, I'm not sure. Could you raise a dwarf horse in an apartment? I don't think so. But maybe. I'm sure there have been multiple people who have tried it. That would not surprise me at all. Then you also need to make sure that you have the right kind of land for horses. So the first thing is horses do need space. It's a minimum of 1 to 2 acres per horse. So if you think about the 2 horses per 5 acres, that kind of rule of thumb actually makes a decent amount of sense. It can be a little bit less, 1 to 2 acres per horse, but you do need a reasonable amount of space for your horse, of course. Otherwise, they're not going to be all that happy. And you do need the appropriate terrain as well. So you got to avoid some obvious things like steep slopes, unless you're actually raising mountain goats and not horses. Wetlands, ponds, and creeks, things that very wet land is not so great for horses, can damage their hooves. You also need soil that can handle horses running around. And you need pasture land as well, unless you are going to rely entirely on supplemental hay and feed. So dense woods, you are probably not going to work as well as you could imagine. So it's sort of common sense. Like, is the land going to support a horse? The best kind of land is pasture land, of course, so flat with a lot of grass, good feed for the horse, and terrain that is not too rough. And then you have to think about water and food as well. So pastures should provide enough forage for 1 horse during the grazing season. Although it's important to keep in mind that even with good grazing land, you'll probably need to use supplemental feed in the winter months. The further north you are, the more supplemental feed you will need. So this is another reason why you need at least 1 acre. You need enough land to grow the food, the grass that the horse needs. Horses also need a lot of water. They drink about 5 to 10 gallons a day. So reliable water is non-negotiable. It would be very helpful if you have a good water source on your land, but if not, you're going to have to plan to supply all of that water in buckets or a tank yourself. Tierra Grande does allow horses. They allow 2 horses for every 5 acres. So that's one of the nice things about the HOA there is they do make it possible to own horses. And some people will raise horses and ride them through the open space because Tierra Grande's preserved 14,000 acres of open space that's just for use by residents or property owners there. So you do need to plan to supply a lot of water for your horse. In the southwest, that can be trickier than in a climate where you're getting a lot more water naturally. So that's going to be something to keep in mind when you're planning out your water use, whether you're doing water hauling or whether you are drilling a well and trying to figure out how much water you're going to need to extract from that well on average. So you'll have to budget 5 to 15 gallons per day per horse. That's a lot of water. Horses also need, so these are all the considerations. Horses also need shelter, and you need to fence in your land, of course, as well. Are horses, they're native to New Mexico? There are wild horses in New Mexico. They are not native. I believe that horses, I should double check this, but I believe that horses were brought to the Americas from Europe. I should know that off the top of my head. So I guess we can do some interesting facts and history. Zaphael, you probably know all this off the top of your head. But so quick history of horses here. Horses actually evolved in North America millions of years ago, but they went extinct on the continent about 10,000 years ago. So they were reintroduced by the Spanish in the 1500s. And now there are wild horses in parts of the US that are native in the sense that they've been there for a couple hundred years, but not native in the sense that they were there before Europeans came to the US. Right, yeah. So the general rule is you are going to have to supplement their feed. You can't, very few people can rely 100% on pasture, especially if you're in an area in a colder climate. So you will have to, and we'll get into the cost of this, but you will have to budget in supplemental feed. But first, you need to make sure that you have given them appropriate space and you need to fence your land. Otherwise, you will no longer have a horse, right? So there's a debate that horses do not go extinct in America, especially down around Brazil. I think there are DNA claims that 2 breeds existed, if you want to know what horse people argue. Oh, interesting. Zaphael, I knew you were going to know this off the top of your head. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I thought it was generally accepted that horses had gone extinct in North America, but I suppose there's some evidence otherwise that there were a few species that survived. That's interesting. I guess we did our fun fact of the day early. So yeah, you'll have to budget for fencing around all of the pasture areas. And one important thing to keep in mind is you don't want barbed wire fencing. That's not going to work too well for horses. You want a safe fence, one that's not going to hurt the horse, but also strong enough to keep them from knocking it down and getting out. So generally people use wooden rails, vinyl, sometimes electric fences, metal fences. It's got to be sturdy, and you don't want it to hurt the horse if the horse tries to jump it or run into it. So if you're thinking about horses and you want to budget costs, here's a quick breakdown of everything you will need to consider cost-wise. So first, there's the cost of the horse itself. And horses are not the cheapest animals, but their price can vary widely depending on what kind of breed you're getting, age, all of that, location. So here we're seeing a pretty big range. They can be $1,500 to $60,000. And Zaphael, I don't know if you've actually looked into purchasing horses, so if you saw prices yourself. But yeah, they're a little more expensive than a dog or a cat. And then once you own the horse, you have both the cost of the basic infrastructure that you're setting up, their barn or shelter, the fencing, all of that, and then you have the annual costs of caring for them. So as Raphael was saying, you can't rely entirely on your land or pasture to feed the horse. You are going to have to provide supplemental feed pretty much anywhere. So that is going to cost a couple thousand a year. A general rule of thumb is that a horse eats around 0.5% of their body weight in grain. So that's about 5 pounds of grain a day and 1.5% or 15 pounds of hay a day. And you're looking at about $40 per 50-pound bag of horse feed. So you can see that it does add up to at least a couple thousand a year, budgeting $2,500 to $5,000 a year in supplemental feed. Ooh, yeah, you can definitely get horses for free if you want one from bad owners. Yeah, I'm sure that there are some horror stories out there, but and I know there are people who purchase or get horses as part of a rescue effort. I know that there are some bad owners. Actually, I've heard the BLM, we were talking about wild horses. BLM will sometimes round up wild horses when their populations get too large and give them away as an alternative to less friendly methods of dealing with the wild horse population. So some people can get horses that way, but you would be getting a wild horse if you're getting it from the BLM. So you'd better be prepared for that and know how to handle a wild horse. Other things that you will have to budget for, just general horse care. Like all living things, horses can get sick. They require checkups. So even if your horse is healthy, you're going to have to budget a couple thousand in vet bills a year. Yeah, people like to get rid of older horses, etc. So yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind. If you also wanted to do it as you love horses and you want to provide a good home to a horse that is not in a good situation or is being abandoned. It's a good, Mustang giveaway. But you would need to be an expert in handling horses to do that. So how do you make money from raising horses? Okay, so you can just look at, we know they're expensive. Abby wants me to get to the point. How could you actually make money raising horses? So it's difficult. The honest answer is that you get horses because you love horses, not because you're going to make a lot of money off of them. But I did find some case studies. Here's a YouTube video of people sharing how they managed to offset the cost of their horses using various methods to generate an income stream. And I think she's just talking, but it's going to play ads for a little bit. But basically, there are a couple people who have documented this online, and the general consensus is the best way to do it is to provide lessons and also make some money producing content as well. That's how a couple people have offset the cost of their horses, but generally providing lessons. So this woman, she started out with just 2 horses, like the 2 horses we were talking about in Tierra Grande. And she started providing one-on-one private lessons using her own horses that she trained and knew were safe at a higher per hour fee because they were one-on-one. And that's how she started out offsetting the cost of her horses when she got them. And eventually she expanded to group lessons and camps, and she now has 4 to 5 reliable lesson horses. So these are the horses that she uses for all her lessons. And Think Like a Horse is a YouTube guy who was an ex-cop that could tell you everything about horses. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I'll have to check out his channel, Think Like a Horse. So anyone who's interested in horses, I can check out that resource as well. But so she expanded to 4 to 5 reliable lesson horses. She also has a larger herd. The rest of her horses were rescues, so she does that more as a charitable side project. But she has 4 to 5 lesson horses, and the bulk of her income is from providing private group and group lessons, and then also allowing camps to come to her facility and ride the horses. And depending on the season, camp season, she'll make more. In the colder months, less, but depending on the season, she makes between $6,000 and $20,000 a month providing lessons with her horses. So whether she doesn't specifically state whether that completely offsets the cost of the horses, but that would certainly help in her managing the expense of all their upkeep. And so she breaks it down. She averages, so it's $6,000 to $20,000 a month on average. The average month is closer to $7,000 to $10,000 a month from the lessons. And then she also makes a few additional thousand per month through her YouTube channel. So from AdSense and brand deals and all of that. And she does have some upsells with the lessons as well. So if someone doesn't have a saddle yet, for a couple $100, she'll help them fit out a saddle. She has some merchandise she sells through her lessons as well. And you can also rent out a room in her farmhouse. So she has a few streams of income that she uses to offset the cost of raising horses. So it's, with horses, this is really more something people get horses because they want them, and then these are more income streams that you could bring in to help offset the cost of horses because horses are very expensive. Let's see. And Zaphael is saying, most of the money I've seen made on horses is from people renting them to ride along beaches or in the country, or sheltering them and taking care of them for owners. So yeah, that's from the case studies I found. There were like 2 main ways that people made money from horses, either providing lessons or renting out their horses for group horse rides. Like in bigger tourist areas, that would be a business. Or they board horses for other people. It seems like the boarding business is a little bit less lucrative than the lesson, sort of renting out horses for people to ride side of things. That appears to be a little more profitable. So those seem to be the 2 main income streams that people are able to produce when they have horses in the city or racing. And then there are the people who are actual horse breeders. That's a whole nother side of things. This is really more for people who want to have a few horses themselves, have a little bit less land, and need supplemental income to help offset the cost of horses. But hopefully Gokche Capital will get some money from YouTube eventually, or get more marketing exposure. Well, we'll see. But so there you have it. Just a little bit of an overview on horses. There's a whole lot more out there. This is a quick overview. I can always go into more detail if anyone is really interested in horses. But I thought I would talk about horses today because we did just list 2 properties in Tierra Grande where horses are allowed, or at least 2 horses per 5 acres are allowed. So that's something to keep in mind. You can find those properties and all of our properties at land.gocap.com. And we do have a discount for all, I think, freelance. Yeah, Abby reminds me to mention that we will be releasing our Freeland giveaway soon, every live stream now. So we're working on finalizing the video for that. It should be live soon. When is it coming out? Let's say by the end of the week. Shall we try to get it out by Friday? I think that's realistic. We can do it by Friday. All right. So keep an eye out for the free land giveaway coming up very soon. And for anyone who's watching this live stream, there is a discount code for New Mexico and our Socorro County property, or any of our New Mexico properties. It's NM150, live NM150, and that's for $150 off any of our New Mexico properties. All you'd have to do is click buy or hold. So whether you buy or hold, you can apply the discount. There's a little space to put in the coupon code. And that coupon code is valid till midnight tonight. So you do have to buy or hold by midnight to get it. And the fun fact of the day, well, we did cover history of horses in North America. So the question of whether they are native or not, but I can pull up another fun fact since you asked about it. The U.S. has more horses today, around 7.2 million, than it did in the 1960s, despite, well, the early 1900s, 1800s, despite cars replacing them a century ago. And that's because horses moved from work animals to lifestyle animals, and apparently lifestyle products sell. So there are more horses now than there were when horses were our primary method of transportation. There are also a lot more people in the U.S., so that may be why. And can we put the coupon in the chat? Yes, we can. Actually, I should just put it in the description. I'll put it in the description. So I'll put that coupon in the description, and it's valid till midnight tonight. You can find all of our properties at land.gocap.com. And then in the description, you can also find the link to our free gift, which is the 17 simple ways to generate income from land in 2025. And that'll be in the pinned comment as well. And Zaphael, you gave me a couple topics to cover tomorrow. I think you're right. We haven't covered making money from renting land or as pasture or as farmland. So I think we'll cover that tomorrow as part of this series on making money from vacant land. So thank you everyone who joined. I'll be back here tomorrow at 2 p.m. and we can talk more about land and learn another way to make money from it. So see you tomorrow.